Hello guys and welcome to the channel. In my last video I talked about Resident Evil 1, what drew me into the environment, the atmosphere, and the entire mystery and intrigue of the story, why it really attracted me into the horror genre, as well as the zombie genre overall, and why it made me such a big fan. I went into depth and personal reasons more so than technical aspects, and today I'm going to be making a more informative video discussing why Remake 2 is such an important fan project for the entire gaming community overall, but I also do want to discuss another point, which is why there is so much hype behind it, and of course these 2 points will be connected to each other, but I'll go through them as best as I can, so let's get into the content without any further delay. So I'm going to be showing some footage in the background here. This is Resident Evil 1 in its original release on the PlayStation. This is before we got the GameCube remake in 2002, which massively expanded upon the game, and I can't really emphasize that enough, to be honest. I will try to express that a little bit later on, but yes, the remake was very much a different game completely. Now I'm gonna show you actual footage from the GameCube version so that you can personally see the difference in graphics, but it's much more than just that. Enemy types, enemy placement, items, environments were expanded upon, as well as whole new locations. I've even talked in one of my previous videos about the entire Lisa Trevor subplot, which is the architect who made the Spencer Mansion, and his daughter and family were assassinated and experimented upon. Remake 1 went really far when it comes to revamping it up from the original game, as you can quite clearly see here. And again, it's not just the graphics, everything else as well. Now I'm just going to transition to some actual footage here of the HD remaster, and this HD remaster, which everyone knows now, of Resident Evil 1 is basically just a HD port of the 2002 GameCube remake of Resident Evil 1 from its original iteration on the PlayStation. Yes, this gets really complicated, I know, but it sets a good precedent up. If you guys take all the facts I just said into account, additional areas, as well as revamps to the areas that we currently have already, changing to all the lighting and atmosphere, revamping of the soundtrack, additional new enemies, as well as enemy location and spawn points, man, there's more so than this. Like I said, the items, etc. There's like pages of things you could get into, and honestly, this is the difference between a remake and a remaster, and this is why it is so hyped by the fans, because we're not just looking at like this HD port remaster of 1, we're looking more like the PlayStation 1 version to the GameCube version of Resident Evil 1, where everything's changed up. It's gonna look so different that it's familiar, but it feels like a completely different game. Now, do you remember in my last video about how I was talking about back in the day graphics were somewhat photorealistic looking to people like us, the OG fans? As I said, it hasn't aged very well, Resident Evil 1, neither has Resident Evil 2, and we want that photorealistic immersion back to bring us and immerse us and scare the hell out of us once again. But it's also the fact, with it not being simply a remaster but a remake, we're gonna have a lot of enhancements. That means we're not really sure what to expect in each specific area. The game will have the ability to re-scare us because we're not sure where all the enemies are gonna pop out from, or what kind of new additions might even make it in there. With the Crimson Zombies being added to the Resident Evil 1 remake, it kind of makes me theorize that there's probably going to be more different kinds of enemies added, and of course they'll have their own initiation sequences and locations. And yeah, this enemy diversity and additional inclusion just really helps immerse the idea and hype us into Remake 2, being such an amazing project. Next, I want to talk about Raccoon City itself, as there's a lot of things to discuss here, but Raccoon City to me was honestly the best location so far ever in any Resident Evil game. I would even go so far as to say that it's one of my favorite locations in any game ever made. Now there's two specific reasons for this. The first one is, we're all nerds. Let's be real. Hold our hands up, guys. How many people have thought through, what would I do if a zombie apocalypse actually occurred? Do any of you guys have a zombie survival plan? Do you know where you're going, what guns and equipment you're going to be trying to obtain, which areas are definitely going to have to be avoided, such as hospitals and food markets, and you know that's just where all the zombies are going to be? How far have you talked about these conversations with your friends? Well, I don't actually have any friends, so I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, because honestly I've never had these conversations. I've never had a friend in my life. This is absolutely terrible, guys. Like, the closest thing I have is fucking Jeff, and he's infected with the G virus now, trying to infiltrate the bunker that I've protected myself in. Now the reason though this is actually contextually important, now think about this. In Resident Evil 1, you're in some goddamn forest in a mansion. Who the hell on this channel, and if you actually have, I'm really interested in this, but who the hell on this channel has actually gone into some random forest deep far in, found a mansion, and gone inside? It's not a very relatable plot, and neither is it really a part of anybody's zombie survival plan. That's why Resident Evil 2 is much more relatable, because many people live in the city, and yeah, that just kind of all adds together. Resident Evil 1 was such a beautiful game because, like I said previously, it had the Bioshock factor going for it, the mystery and intrigue of not knowing what's going on. And Resident Evil 2, well, you already know what zombies are, so the entire allure to it was the relativity of being able to survive in a city just like the one you probably live in. Of course, there's a story going on with Leon and Claire, and we've got to go through a narrative, and it's a much more elaborate and sinister plot than just survive like The Walking Dead. However, it is still the closest that we get to our fantasy of just trying to survive and live through a zombie apocalypse in a city environment. And this is another thing that I think why people are so hyped. If you take into consideration the fact that the environments were extended as well as changed up in Remake 1, I'm probably assuming they're going to expand upon Raccoon City, and a lot of people will probably agree that the Raccoon City in Resident Evil 2 actually felt very cramped and linear, and I really do hope that they change this up, that they make it a little bit more open world. And I'm not saying the evil within, just the fact that we can walk through more of the streets, go down a few more blocks, have a wider variety of areas to go into, and considering the remake in the title, I definitely think that's a probability. There will be at least some areas that are a little bit larger in my opinion, but I just hope it's the outside environments, because it's the fact of just being out in the city itself, which honestly is so appealing and beautiful. You want to see the crimson lit city backline all on fire, hearing gunshots in the distance, the police car sirens going off and people screaming. It'll be absolutely beautiful if they expand on the exterior environments, because Resident Evil 2 itself had more of a focus on the interiors. Again, because of how expansive Remake 1 was, a lot of people are starting to question all of these facts I've brought up, as well as many more, and that is exactly why Remake 2 is so hyped, and why so many people are talking about it, and why it's definitely going to be one of the bigger game projects of the last decade. Now I'm going to get into my second point of why I think it's such an important project overall, and I'm talking about this from an industry perspective. The only other project that I can actually really compare to in importance in the gaming industry when it comes to remakes is Final Fantasy VII. Now, I'm not going to make a big analysis over this. I'm just going to say that both of these remakes are very important. Both of them have been requested from old school fans for many years since the original game's release, and both of them have been greenlit with a lot of fan controversy and backlash afterwards due to worries about the projects being maybe mishandled. These are definitely valid concerns, and I can understand them. However, with both of these games, the way they set their entire foundation, whether they have DLCs and what type they are, whether they include microtransactions to have new saves such as Metal Gear Solid Survive, how expansive and how much passion and effort has been put into the projects. There are so many things that are important because these two games are going to set an industry standard for what becomes acceptable. That means many other games that do remakes in the future will definitely be looking at these two projects that were anticipated so highly to make critical analysis and improve and change their own game. So Remake 2 and Final Fantasy VII by extension, the implementation and the development of them is actually very important to all of us in a much bigger way than many individuals might be able to appreciate. Just remember how much Resident Evil 4 influenced the video game genre overall, and you'll have a similar idea. There's been many remakes, reboots and other things of games before Resident Evil, but I do think Resident Evil 2's remake, and especially Final Fantasy VII, are the most hyped and biggest ones ever anticipated, and I think many people can definitely agree with me on that one. I hope you've enjoyed the video. As always, for now guys, that's all I've got for you for today. If you want to donate to my Patreon and support me in the endeavor to produce better content, as well as one day maybe build my own personal spaceship rocket so we can send Jeff out into outer space and we don't have to deal with him anymore, then yeah, feel free to donate to my Patreon. I've also got a Twitter and a Discord if you want to come and join those. All of these things can be found in the description, and I'll leave a pinned comment if you want to just scroll down below to find it all. I hope you've had a beautiful day. As always, take it easy and peace.